have a wealth of knowledge and experience on these topics that they are willing to share. Thank you for joining us. This session is for sharing information purposes only, and it should not be interpreted as legal advice. Views expressed by the guests or individuals are not endorsed by Maitri. Maitri is a non-profit organization that provides holistic and confidential services to support and empower South Asian survivors of familial violence in the San Francisco Bay Area. Please see our website at www.maitri.org to learn more about us. Today, in the second session of the series, we will hear about the challenges of getting back to the workforce after a break. Many of us take a break from work, whether it is because you immigrated to the US and are waiting for the correct visa to raise a family, to take care of your parents, or various other reasons. When you are ready to start working, you feel overwhelmed and don't know where to start. Our panelists today will share their extensive knowledge and tips, all derived from their own experiences and from other experiences of other people. You are sure to walk away with some useful tips. Our facilitator for this afternoon is Nikita Jagaeesh. Nikita has been leading teams in tech strategy and product management at Instabase, McKinsey, and Nutanix. Her deep passion for gender equality led her to found Move Up, a nonprofit that has helped hundreds of underserved women find jobs and start small businesses and become financially independent. Nikita is joined by Swati Vohra of Returnize and Veena Gupta of Relaunch. You will hear more about them from Nikita. So sit back and relax and use the Q&A chat session to ask your questions. We will try to answer as many questions as we can in the 1 hour we have, or we will get back to you if you leave your email ID. Over to you, Nikita.
Thank you so much, Ruchi. Welcome, everybody. We are very excited today to be speaking about such an incredibly important topic, returning to the workspace after a break. I'm very excited to be introducing two incredible women, Veena and Swati, who have had careers and built organizations that are going after this problem firsthand. And so as a quick background on both of them, before jumping into the questions for today. So Veena Gupta, when Veena moved to the US, she started a consulting job before founding several companies in the IT staffing and consulting space. Then her passion for diversity and inclusion, combined with her observation of a goldmine of hidden talent among stay-at-home parents and others at career crossroads, led her to found Relaunch and Career Interrupted. Both companies nurture and mentor people who are re-entering the workforce to find fulfilling and sustainable careers. And now to Swati Vohra. Swati is a computer scientist who worked on database technologies at IBM for several years before taking a break to take care of her family. She's a coach and the founder of Returnize. The challenges she faced on her journey of returning to work made her understand the plight of women in similar or worse situations. That understanding has resulted in her founding Returnize, through which she coaches women to gain confidence, strong professional identities, and independence at many levels. And so today, the goal of the discussion is really to utilize the story, the personal story of all of us on this panel, and use that to give tips as well as short-term and long-term strategies for how to think about re-entering the workforce. And so to begin this discussion, I would love to start with actually each of the panelists giving a quick story and their personal story. And so Swati, why don't we begin with you? Please, would love to delve into your personal story and how you got into this journey of founding this organization.
Definitely, and thank you, Nikita, thank you, Maitri, and thank you all of you who are attending this session today. I'm really delighted and excited to share my experience with all of you on this really important topic. So where do I begin? I returned to work in 2014 after a long career break. And before that, in my previous professional life, I worked at IBM, as Nikita said, on database technologies for 18 years. So when I took that break, I thought first of all, it was going to be a very short break. And I said, oh, after that break, it should not be very difficult to go back to my career. But then 1 year became two, and two became many. And I was really surprised and stupefied when I realized that my skills felt outdated. I was really not confident. I had lost all my confidence. And interestingly, my life was quite busy. So I did not pursue, or my return to work journey, the agenda kept getting pushed down to the bottom of the heap. But something was bothering, something was not right. I really was missing something in my life. And I often felt like that hamster on a wheel, furiously churning through way of life, but truly not going anywhere purposeful. Long story short, I got myself out of that. I retrained myself. I somehow found a job that I wanted to do, and I went back to work. But when I went back to work, I started looking backwards to my journey that I'd taken so far. And very quickly, I'll share a couple of, I learned a lot of lessons, but a couple of things really stand out. One was, it was extremely hard. That journey was very hard, very confusing, and very chaotic. And I think most of all, it was really, really boring to do it on my own. Even though I had worked on the database technologies for so long, all the buzzwords, all the frameworks, all the technology words really sounded Greek and Latin to me. And my resume had this gaping hole. As a result of it, I really wasn't talking to a lot of people, and I didn't know where to begin. The second important thing that I realized was I somehow did not take that as an opportunity, or I did not evaluate my circumstances, and I did not explore what I should be doing next. Instead, I just assumed that I came back from the database technology world, and that's exactly where I will be going again. And what happens is there's an underlying thing, right? Because you don't explore, because you don't feel confident about the new technologies, you do not strike any meaningful conversations with anybody, and you do not network as a result of it. And that results into you not getting any clarity, and you just go into this vicious circle. And that's exactly what happened. So instead of exploring that path, I just straight went back to the technology area. And the one last thing that I want to share is the most important thing that really came to me as a surprise. That I was not returning to work. I was working all the time. I have been working all along. I was returning to my professional identity. Because see, what happened was when I was working at IBM, I was still a daughter. I was a cousin, friend. I was a mother-in-law, or rather a daughter-in-law. I was taking care of the family, other things, my passions, hobbies. So life was busy and I was working. But when I was at IBM, when anybody asked me, hey, what do you do? I said, I work at IBM. I didn't start with, I'm mother or daughter, right? All that was missing was that tiny piece from my entire journey. And that's what I was returning to. So it is really my personal story about returning to work or my professional identity after a career break. And I'm really excited to share my experience with you.
Thank you so much, Swati. That was great. Veena, please go ahead.
Sure. So as Swati said, I'm equally excited to be here and share my experience and story and whatever we have been able to do and help others in the journey. So my story, I do want to tell you a little bit background of my story. Didn't start after coming here. It actually started, I grew up in a very small town in India, and where women were not even encouraged to have a career. So the term career never occurred to me till I was like in my high school. And I used to see my mom and aunts and all like, hey, their kids are gone and their other things, and they're always busy. And I just felt like I don't want just doing that with my life. So the term career, the seed of having a professional life was actually planted in my head at that point. I just didn't know how to make it happen. Fortunately, I got married to a person who was just opposite. He like really watered everything that is going in on that seed and made it happen. So for me, I feel like having a career is not just one person's journey. It's a support system that brings a person confidently, no matter what they do. So in my whole process, what I learned is, could I have done it alone? I don't know. But in my professional journey, which I started after coming to US and after getting married and all that, I never took the so-called career break even after having the kids and all, because I was so adamant about having that journey that was given and that career that was given to me as a fact that I was dreaming from childhood. So I just never imagined that I can take a break. But when I see a lot of people who are taking the break, I feel that there is something that needs to be done. For example, the work that I'm doing at Mom Relaunch, my whole journey and passion that is to make that journey easier for them. And we have obviously crafted a process for it, but what we really figured out in the journey of my own is that I had the desire, I had the need, I had the want, and the really big desire burning in my belly, a fire in the belly that helped me kept going. So after coming here, I kept on going. I just worked for 3-4 years as an independent, as a consultant in a talent industry. Then I started my own business, running my own independent consulting, because I just had my child and I didn't want to work at my time that other companies were saying. So I started my own company and then saw the need of bringing more people. So my first employee, interesting, was a stay-at-home mom who I trained and nurtured in 2003, brought her as my first employee. And I saw the struggle that people face during that whole returnship into the workforce. So all these things have been cooking in my head, is like, I have to do something. But of course, if you're running your own business, after running my company from staffing, I started building products and software. And all this time I have given a process and a way for obviously people who are looking for that fire in the belly and reason to continue. And I've done that successfully in my own company, given the opportunities and an environment and the support system that I'm such a big fan of, that without that, if that is not available, no one will be successful, especially for women. So we have crafted and created that in our own company. Then after I selling my software company, I decided to make this as a program that we can replicate for the industry to follow. And that's when I launched Mom Relaunch. That Mom Relaunch has given me 2 years of experience how to make it work for other companies. Very proud to say that we have launched multiple women, given them the opportunity to do that. And now I'm in the process of launching my book. The book is called Career Interrupted. That career interruption happens for whatever reason. We have summarized everything for anyone to go through this process, whether they're getting laid off or for any reason with pandemic. We are seeing a lot of things as well. So that's pretty much all my story is.
Well, wonderful, both Veena and Swati. What incredible journeys you've had, and a lot of learnings that you've been able to take into your organizations. What I would love to start off with is, as we think about the journey to get back into the workforce, there's a lot of things to it, right? There's, first of all, a mental state. There's lots of ups and downs that go with this. There's a lot of actual short-term and long-term project planning and strategy to make sure that you approach this with the right community and the right network in mind. And then finally, it's the third piece of, once you're kind of in the process, how do you actually explain your gaps and make a story and show how productive and what you've been doing outside of work as well as you go into this journey, right? And so what I'd love to start with is talk through a bit of specifics on the milestones that you've seen as you think about bridging this gap, as you think about this journey, and walk through some examples in making this journey fruitful as people are starting to it. And so Swati, what I'd love to do is start with you, and you spoke a little bit about clarity and adding intent, and would love to hear a bit more on that, on your own journey. And Swati, you're on mute right now.
Definitely. So let me ask this question to everybody in the audience. We have done a project or two in our life, right? From a small project to, say, inviting a bunch of people for dinner, to remodeling the homes, or to, say, finding after school activities for our children, to planning vacations. And how do we all do those projects? We first of all understand what the project is. We break it down to smaller pieces. We figure out what we know, what we don't know about it. And suppose you're inviting a bunch of people for dinner, and you want to make a recipe. You call your mom, you call your aunt, and say, "Hey, can you explain this to me?" So you uh, find out. You go to a mentor, ask some information, and you outsource sometimes. You order some food sometimes. I guess the key is return to work or relaunching your career. You have to look at it as a project. Exactly like this, so you can break it and understand the different milestones that are there along the journey and achieve each milestone so you can get to your final goal. So let me talk about the journey itself and what are the milestones during that journey before you sort of cross that bridge to the other side, right? Uh, First important milestone is getting the clarity. And yes, I did talk about that. Explore. You understand what your circumstances are. You understand why you want to do this and where you would like to do it. So take some time in an organized manner and understand how you would like to do that. Once you get that clarity, then you also understand where you should be really upskilling yourself. What are the skills required to get to that job? Because there are, for no matter what you want to do after a career break, even if it's the same field, uh, the technology, the landscape looks quite different. So you want to understand what skills you should really update, because you can't be updating each and every skill. So you have to understand what the common denominator is and go for that. And then after that, you want to work on your portfolio. Get your resume ready, get your story ready, get your LinkedIn profile ready, which is really the key. And I'll talk about that again later, but uh, get your portfolio ready so you can approach the job market in a right way. And these are the three milestones that everybody has to really cross or touch, regardless of how long that journey is. It's very important. And one companion I would highly recommend to always keep with you along this journey is your networking thing. You have to network along this journey through all these milestones. It's a very important thing. So I think, as I said, this is really during that journey before you cross that bridge. Veena, you can take it from here maybe.
Yeah, sure. So Swati, you have covered most of the important milestones. One of the things we have found while people are relaunching, and that has worked really well in our program, and we have seen this over and over again, that no matter how much clarity and the plans and things are, but when you get to the real work and you go and start figuring out if this is what you think it is, sometimes it changes. You don't want to do something that you think you want to do. So how do you bring that further clarity and experience before you go into the real world is one of the milestones and process that we have created in our program, where we give you the experience to explore. You get a simulated environment, and that environment is what really solidifies your milestone. So I'll give you an example. If you think that you want to be coming back and want to become a digital marketing expert or digital marketing specialist, and then you go back and figure out, no, it's not the right place, you can come and experience on that. So keeping yourself accountable along with the milestone and giving the check that, yes, this is what my clarity is and this is the path I want to be, is the way to work on the milestone further.
Absolutely, I agree with you, because experience is the last leg for
Exactly.
every it's not really a linear journey, I would say. There are many loops where you get a clarity on something, you understand these other skills, you get some experience, understand this is the way you want to go further or not, and continue through that loop till you finally go
Absolutely.
launch yourself. Absolutely, yeah.
And what I would add to this is, what I would just add to this is how there's ways to be very specific in testing the intent, Swati, that you spoke about, right? So for example, one of the learnings that we've had with, when I've been working with many women as they're getting back into their careers is thinking through what are actually short ways to test your skill sets, right? And what are quick ways to see and iterate on seeing that what the intent that you have can actually succeed if you do it full time. So for example, one of the clients I was working with wanted to start a restaurant. And so was looking to see, could I actually start a restaurant? Would I enjoy this? And what we started with actually doing there was, can we actually do a catering business for even 1 month? Can we do a catering business? Can we actually go deliver and actually start seeing if it's possible to go forward, and did the client enjoy it? And what she actually found in doing that was, one, she actually thought the labor hours were far too long. She didn't find it scalable, and she wasn't enjoying it after doing it for 1 month, right? Similarly, there's other tests that you can do. One of the clients that we were working with was looking to see if there was actually a way that her she was looking to start a event planning company and whether it would scale. And so we started actually putting out ads on Craigslist to see in this region, was there a need for small events that she could take over? And so there's a lot of ways to actually test this as you're going down the search process before jumping fully into it. And so one thing I would encourage is, as you're starting to think about the entry points that you want to go into, what are small market tests that you can do before jumping fully in, and that'll give you more clarity on your intent, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what we am talking about, getting the experience and the simulated environment. We have a term for that in our program. We call it as Launchpad. Come and experiment in your Launchpad and see if it works.
Yeah, and I'll just add one small thing to it. These testing periods are really important because we all of us have a lot of talents, a lot of passions, a lot of hobbies, but not every passion turns into a profession.
Exactly.
And you have to do that little bit of testing to get that clarity, experience, everything, to understand, is this my profession? Is this what I'm going to say? Yes, this is what I do as my professional identity. And you have to complete that cycle all the time.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, with that, would love to move to the next piece of this, which is how to actually approach the job market. So for this, would love to get 3 quick tips from all of us on essentially how to actually approach the job market and how to think about actually building this kind of, building a roadmap for yourself as you're approaching this, right? So Veena, would you like to start for this one?
Sure. So there's no lack of tips, but the first thing that I go back and tell people is build your brand. How do you build your brand before you get into the market? Even if you're just a restaurant or something like that, start thinking about how you will show your expertise in that area. And the program that we teach, say, suppose we are teaching somebody to be a QA testing, automation testing engineer, we tell them to write blogs. We tell them to go and answer questions. You go back and be part of the community. The key is you build a brand by helping others, by showing the way to others. So building the brand is one of the most critical things to do. A lot of times people think, oh, I don't have anything to share. I don't have anything to show. What am I going to do? What am I going to write? Just go and answer questions. Just be part of the community. Just be there to help others. There's always somebody that you can teach, and there's always somebody you can learn from. If you keep that in mind, you will never have that question as how I'm going to build a brand. So second tip for me is not only just your network, think about what is the ecosystem that you're going to be more successful. By the term ecosystem, I mean to say is if you're a writer, for example, what are the places that writers get the most visibility? So should you write on LinkedIn or should you write on Medium? Figure out or do it all. So finding your ecosystem where you'll be more successful is going to be really important. Third, job search is like a job. It's a full-time job. If you're approaching a market, think that you're doing a job. It's not like you're going to do 1 or 2 hours. Think they're working 40 hours to find a job. And where you're going to find the job is knowing where your strengths are, where your things are. You have a whole things to search about yourself and recognize where you will be happy and not, which is going to give you that typical work-life harmony that we talk about. But if you're missing the fact that you are just thinking that doing it on off like this, it's not a simple thing. if you want the real good job to be working in. So these are some of the 3 tips that you mentioned. Swati, you can take it.
Definitely, you covered important ones for sure. And as you said, there are many. Let me say, we talked about intent, right? We all talked about having that intent and getting that clarity. There is a gap. There's always a gap between intent and execution. How do you really achieve that? There are a couple of ways to do it. You can search for places where we all have organizations, but you can look for mentors, you can look for cohorts, you can look for support system where you can stay accountable to your journey and to really execute you want to what you are dreaming about. The other thing that I can talk about is, Google is your best buddy when you're in this process. You can take all sorts of courses. There's Udemy's, there are Coursera's, there are LinkedIn education systems. But don't stay behind that screen all the time. Get out and talk to people. When you talk to people, when you brainstorm, you actually know how to confidently communicate to them, with them, and you also know what information you can get from them. So it is really, really important to networking sometimes get this really, it gets a frown because it's a scary word sometimes when especially you are in this journey, you don't want to talk to people, but just start with your family, start with your friends, and start conversing about your intent and how you are going to get there. So mentoring, finding cohorts, and talking to people is important. One important thing, regardless of where you are going, what you want to do, is it's very specific, but please pay attention to your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is your best buddy as you are getting into professional work. So pay attention to that. And just, I would say, understand your story, be patient, and take a leap of faith, and stay on your path. It's your path, but join the journey really with everybody else.
I'd like to add one more point. I know I am already done, but this is mainly for people who are returning to the workforce, right? And most of the audiences, they always have this question: how do I address the gap question? What is there and how I address that? And one very important tip for you is don't be guilty about it. Just own that you have taken a break. That was the best decision for your family at that time. Don't try to over explain. I have seen so many people in our program who come and just goes on and on. I had to do this. I had to say, it's past. Now you're ready for getting back. Just focus on that. And please be confident about it. Don't make any excuses. The gap is there. You cannot fill that gap. Show how you can leap that gap.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Yeah, and just to wrap up, yeah, go ahead, Swati, and then we'll.
I was just quickly going to say one more thing, that volunteer. Yes. Volunteering can be done in 2 ways. One, you do it for a cause that you're passionate about, but volunteering also offers skills building. And pay attention to that side. All these volunteering organizations are like companies that are running for a purpose, and they need a lot of skills, they need a lot of people. So just pay attention to that and join an organization where you can volunteer and hone your skills, experience, as well as build your new skill set.
Yeah. And to synthesize these, these are fantastic ones, and I love how specific you are in these. One of the things we found to be very helpful is, if you think about structuring this, what Veena said, right? If you're really thinking about this as a full-time job, here's just what we found to be helpful. One, as you think about just a numbers game, right? Typically, if you apply to about 100 roles, we found about 2 or 3 interviews come out of that, right? So just think about the number, the pure volume that you have to be applying to. And what we found helpful is setting up almost a job sheet for yourself. You're putting all your jobs in here. You're seeing the ones you're getting callbacks from, which ones you're not, and starting to iterate on your strategy. So the very first thing is always have a centralized place where you're actually looking at the volume and the number of jobs that you're applying to, because the actual top of the funnel that you're applying to makes a big difference. The second piece I would say is interview practice is key, right? So what the hardest questions to answer that are are tell me about yourself and why did I actually have this gap, as Veena said, right? And thinking through the tell me about yourself and bringing your story together so well that as Swati and Veena did in the beginning of this, being able to really explain your story. What are you passionate about? Why are you now going for this specific job type? What may have you done in the past several years, perhaps to even doing upskilling yourself, bringing all of those pieces into your story, because many of us, when people have taken a gap, it does not mean that, that gap, many of us were still learning, many of us were still involved in our community, and those are important to bring up during this piece. And the third piece I'd say, just to kind of synthesize what Swati said, is in today's day from 10 years ago, the role of LinkedIn has changed significantly. To give you an example, at my current company, most hiring managers don't even look at resumes, they go directly to LinkedIn, right? And so if your LinkedIn is not updated, if it doesn't have your most recent pieces, just know that as your profile is getting sent through companies, most of the time it is very much LinkedIn driven. So really treat LinkedIn as your kind of first brand creating platform as you're going through your job search, and ensure that you have friends look at it, you have mentors look at it, you have your network look at it, because that is going to be your most powerful vehicle as you go into this journey. Awesome. And so for the last piece of the discussion today, and then we'll open it up for Q&A, a big part of this job journey and getting back into the workforce, and for many people when they're in the workforce, increasing their looking for more difficult roles or more challenging roles, it's a lot about confidence. And I know both of you touched upon this. And what I'd love to spend the last several minutes on is what are a few techniques that you've seen for increasing your own confidence as you're going into this search?
Do you want to take it?
Go ahead, Swati. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead.
Confidence comes because of a lot of things. One, if you know your story, if you know what you are trying to get to, you can talk confidently about it. But it doesn't happen overnight, right? So there are a lot of, I'm giving probably some specific tips. You are going to go out and talk to people. As Nikita said, interview with other people, informational interviews. You're going to find information about other companies or ask for a job. Simple thing as join a Toastmaster group, where you can practice your communication skills and gain confidence of public speaking and talking about it. It's very critical, and that has played a huge role with many of the members of Returnize community. It's very important. And practice. Write it down what you want to talk about. Practice is so well. Practice with your friends, practice with the cohort that you are in, practice with in front of a mirror what you want to say. So you understand when you're going in front, it comes naturally to you, are not struggling. Because as Reena said, you don't want to feel guilty about when you talk to some other people. And if that story comes very confidently, it makes an impact. One last thing that I will add is anytime you are sharing your story or sharing your knowledge with other person, you really cannot control the other person's circumstances. You do not know where that person is coming from, whether he or she had a bad day at home, something happened in the traffic. So rather than being afraid of, oh my God, what that other person is going to think of me, if you have clarity in your mind, you can control your parameters. So go ahead with that.
Sure. Great point, Swati. When I talk to people in our program about confidence, the first thing we look into is how much they are believing in themselves. And the more they believe in themselves, the more confidence it shows up in their talks, in their interviews. So what we do to inculcate the confidence is somehow give them a process and a way to show that they believe in themselves. That belief is very critical to build the confidence, because no matter how much people has gone through the process in terms of learning and trying to figure it out, if they don't believe that they can do it, they will not do it. And that will show in the confidence level when they're interviewing. So when we do the interview preparation for people in our program, that's what we look for. Whether they can solve the problem today or not, but can they go to Google and find the problem and say, yes, I can do it. So that's what we look for in terms of confidence building. Second tip for confidence is there is no replacement for actually rolling up your sleeves and doing it. So you can learn about something by reading. You will learn more by actually doing it. So our way of building the confidence is based on these two. And one last thing is whatever you know, confidently go and teach another person. So more you teach, the more you learn. So that's in our program, basically whoever is coming in last becomes the peer guide for the person who is coming next. So whatever they learn in the program, they go and teach the other person and further solidifies their confidence. That builds the communication, that builds the way that they can explain it. So these are our confidence building tips. Obviously, we give them opportunities to speak and talk and share the knowledge and go solve the problem. All these things, when they go and actually find the solutions, that's the confidence. That's when it gives them the experience and the way to come up with something on their own. And the ownership of solving the problem can build the confidence 100 times more than anything else. So those are some of the confidence building tips we apply in our program.
Yeah, these are great. And I love the idea, Veena, you're saying of teaching someone. That is such a good way to also make your learning on a topic go stronger, right? So I love that. What I would just add, Swati and Veena had both incredible tips. I would say two things. The first is that as you are starting to think about areas to practice where you feel like your confidence might be weaker, like for example, so for some people it could be presentation, some people it could be impromptu speaking, for some people it could be interviewing. Find areas, other parts of your life where you can test those. So often you can use your volunteer experience, or perhaps you're taking on a role in your in your community. Take that role on and take on a role that's a little bit more of a stretch, that you would not feel comfortable doing otherwise, and use that to also build up your confidence. On the interviewing piece specifically, one of the techniques that we've seen very helpful is actually starting to record yourself and do live interview practice with folks that you know, people who are going to give you very specific and open feedback. And so find friends, find folks that you are interacting with more on a closer basis, and have them actually do the live interviews with you on the questions like, why did you have a gap? Tell me about yourself. What are you looking for in your next journey? The more you can practice, that is really where the confidence is going to come from. And so this really connects to a theme that Swati said earlier, which is as much as we can be with our computers, like get out as much as we can and talk to people, find opportunities to practice, because that's where we're going to get the foundation to build our confidence, right? And yes, wonderful. And what I'd love to do is, there's an excellent question that came up, and so we'll do these that have come up, and then I'll pass it back to Maitri for the further Q&A. What I'd love to know is, this is a fantastic question by Lalita, which is, as we think about addressing this gap when you're speaking with folks, right? One, what are you seeing in terms of experience about employers' willingness to actually hire women who've had a gap? And then two, how to actually talk about that gap?
I can take that if you want. Sure. So all I can say, this is the best time. This is the best time for women to return, because never ever the companies and employers have shown so much interest in hiring and giving opportunities to women returners. Companies are looking for it. All you have to do is be prepared. As I said, like, don't be guilty about your career break. Are you ready now? Are you ready to give your 100%? This is the best time. I don't know what the future holds, and I hope it gets better and better, but never ever in the history of workforce and talent and all that has ever been the best time to return to the workforce.
I wholeheartedly support that. There are so many returnship programs that these companies are creating. There are a lot of organizations that are fitting into that middle piece, where they are connecting women who want to go back to work and who are talking to these companies. And there's a lot of focus on diversity and inclusion. So this is the best time. One more thing that I would add to this is, we hopefully are coming towards the end of the pandemic. Hopefully we are seeing the light, but still, as we're sitting at home, take this opportunity and don't say that, oh my God, when the job market opens, when things open, I will start preparing for it. Start preparing for your journey right now. Everything can be done online, even if you cannot meet people in person. There are Zooms, there are Googles, there are Udemy's, there are Coursera's. Take advantage, carve out the time and go for it.
Yeah, and actually pandemic is really a blessing for women who are looking for where to return, because now employers are more open to doing remote, hiring more remote workers than ever before. So um, for anyone who's looking for the job and returning, you cannot find a better time.
Great advice. At this point, Ruchi, I'd love to pass it back to you for any further Q&A. And for any folks on any attendees, feel free to enter any other questions into the Q&A or chat.
Yeah, thank you, Nikita. Thank you, Reena. Thank you, Swati. So we have some questions here. One is, any tips about not losing confidence and self-worth in the process of trying to get back to work?
Not losing confidence?
That's right. Not losing confidence and self-worth in the process of trying to get back to work.
Can I take this?
Yeah, sure.
There are many tips. I will give you one. Find a support system. Find a support system that, and there are many. Here are 3 organizations, but explore, start the journey even exploring what organizations are there, which cohort you should join, what programs you should join, so that you are not doing this on your own. I mean, I did it on my own, and it was really, really painful, because you, first of all, you do not have confidence. On top of that, you are learning something new. Top of that, you are looking at the job market and saying, oh my God, these younger folks are also now coming into the market. And how do I achieve any of that? Trust me, you can do it. But when you do it on your own, it just gets extremely painful. When you have a support system, together you can move forward. And it becomes very, very enjoyable and easy.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I've interact with a lot of companies in the DEI work, and one of the things that we are promoting through our program is, if companies are missing out on the talent like women returners, it's actually their loss. They are not understanding the soft skills that you guys are bringing. So highlight and work with your strength. Don't try to go back and just think that you have a career gap and you have this and you don't have self-worth. The things that you gain as parenting, nobody else can. We talk about like accountability, loyalty, productivity. These are the things absolutely you cannot, newcomers and the the youth cannot have that, because you have inculcated that skill. So work on your strength and find what your strengths are, and how you can apply those transferable skills to the job that you're looking for. That is very important, and that will build your confidence.
Thank you. We have another question here, and this says, how do you deal with ageism? I am 58 years old and I want to go back. Do you think employers are open?
It depends on your strength, basically. It depends on the area that you're looking for. And if you try to go back and say, I want to be 58 years old and I want to be an Instagram marketer or digital market, people will look at you as like, okay, can you do it? But if you go back and find out the job that fits your profile and you can really prove in it, and you have the strengths and you have the experience, ageism is just a number. What you have to do is sell that you have the qualities and the skills to do the job that you're looking for. Of course, you will compete with anyone. They look for, and one of the things that we teach people in dealing with the ageism and what the things that they're returning, we have women in our program over 30 years, between 30 to, I would say, 50, 55 years old. And I don't think it comes in as strong as it is in your own mind. Employers are looking for people who can do the job. They are not looking for the numbers all the time. So just first take that from out of your own mind, and you will be successful.
I'm going to add to that. 58, 70, you see women in the workforce right now who are in the 80s, right? Or 90s. What we are afraid of is just because we have that gap. And we talked about it already, that sure, it's a gap, but we have been working, we have all the soft skills, we know how to get there. It's just building that confidence. So 2 things can be done, right? We have plenty of examples in my cohort or my program where gap was really, really wide. You came from, there was a physicist. She was a scientist for many, many years. She took a gap, thought she wanted to become a physicist, but the opportunity, the explorations allowed her to in fact start her own small company. It's a small business which has nothing to do with physics anymore, right? So you can explore some other possibilities and you can have your own business. You can also go back to where you want to go. People have gone back to work. I guess, again, I'm going to repeat this, but the important part is I say almost 100% of women or 100% of those who really want to return to work after that gap will find their next opportunity through connections. Because if you go through monster.com and indeed.com and all these different channels, one, you're going to hit the roadblock of these automated softwares. They're going to just scan your gap. But you're going to be competing with hundreds of resumes and people who are applying for that same job, right? Where you have to now talk against those who are currently working, currently in the market and are experienced versus you are saying, oh, I have this 5, 10, 15, 25 year gap. So you have to start networking so people on the other end also start understanding that, yeah, you are capable of doing things and you have potential. So it's very important. LinkedIn profile and networking are the key.
Yeah, these are good tips. We have another question here. How do I market a break as a productive break with transferable skills?
Yeah. So that's what we teach. I mean, we look into what you did during that break. What are the skills that you have gained either through volunteering for other organizations, and in the career path that we are looking at for suggesting you how to go back, we look into those transferable skills. Most of the time, it's right in front of you. You just have not looked at it deeply. So transferable skills has a lot of different aspects. Could be as simple as Swati was giving an example, like if you're managing a dinner for planning a dinner for you, that has the management skills that you have to do it, right? How do you bring those things? Now, one of the key things that you have to understand, that suppose you're applying for a position at a corporate and you have all your skills are in a nonprofit and those skills may or may not be 100% applicable. You have to read out those skills and figure out what those skills apply for it. So we have an exercise of making sure. There's a very interesting program called Strengths Finder. So if you go, there's like 34 skills that gives you. Go and look into that Strengths Finder and try to chart out where those skills are, how it applies to the jobs that you're looking for or where you want to build your career in, and then look into where you have learned those transferable skills and create a process for it, create a map for it, have a chart of how you can bring it all together.
And I would add to what Veena is saying, that just as important as it is going to doing a reflection and looking at what you did is being able to communicate that, right? So being able to practice and communicate what those transferable skills were and how you could apply that. So for example, one of the clients that we were working with, she had a gap, but she was actually leading as a treasurer at her community organization, right? I mean, that is an incredible skill set to have. In that, another client we had taken a bunch of Coursera courses and actually finished a certification. And so as you're having those, be able to communicate each of these in 2 minutes and know how to speak about them and apply them to the job that you're looking for, because the communication of it is just as important as actually what you did.
And I'm going to add my own experience to this. We always, the way we start is we start looking at the job descriptions and we say, oh my God, they are asking for JavaScript. They're asking for this particular framework. My God, I come from the world where there was something called C++. And how will I do this? And you drop that ball. You say, I don't want to pursue this further. You lose your confidence. What you forget is once you have the solid basic foundation, you can pick up these skills. That's why understanding what is the common denominator of skills they're asking for, and then mapping what you have to what they're asking is very, very crucial. Skills are, we all have skills, they are transferable, we just have to find a way to really do that mapping. And one thing I'm just going to quickly add, we all are so creative, right? When it comes to our children or our nephews and nieces, We have wrapped these vegetables that are yucky in pancakes and fed them. We're so creative. When it comes to us, we suddenly get shaken. Why is that? Don't do that. So there is a trick to that. When you're talking about yourself, instead of talking about yourself, just say, hey, this is about my friend. And I want my friend to get that job. I want my friend to get that information. And go for it. And suddenly you'll realize, oh my God, you are going to the mat about your friend. It works. This trick always works.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's a great tip. Thank you, Swati. We have another interesting question here. It says, how do you convince hiring managers that you are a good fit and that you are still the same intelligent person?
So, you want to take this or should I take it?
Sure, I'll take it.
Okay.
Remember I said, do not worry about the hiring manager. Do you have your story ready? Then you can just convince that hiring manager or whoever is the person on the other side of the table about your story, which is very clear, what you have done and what do you bring to the table. So you have to do your homework. You have to understand what the company is doing or who your clientele is, what the market is, and you prepare the narrative so that you confidently say, this is what I bring to the table. It's not about what skills you have, but what you bring to the table for them. And at the end of the day, also understand what that company or that organization is all about. Because if there may or may not be a match, and that's okay. So it's not always, remember, people hiring managers, companies are not really looking for very hardcore skills these days or technical skills. They're also looking for a person who will be a good fit, who will remain in the company for a longer time. So it has to be a good match, and that's what you have to go for. So don't be afraid. Know who you are.
So one of the things to add from my end on that part is when hiring managers are looking at you, they're looking at results. They're not looking only you as a person and what you are able to tell them and put that in the resume. What they're looking for the results. And we know that this problem occurs more and more, especially if you had a gap. You can go and tell all the stories about what you did before, but what did you do during the gap? How did you provided the results? So have that story, what you did productively during that gap. And of course, as I mentioned, that we focus in our program very closely on giving the experience that you build before you go into the hiring manager. So have the people who can talk be your reference and say, you are done it, you are a Java programmer, or you're coming in. And by the way, you did these projects and experience in the projects that you're working with us, and have somebody be your reference. Because before hiring, reference checks are very important part that most of the companies do. So whether you're volunteering at your school or have somebody who can talk on your behalf. And this works so importantly, and that is one of the foundation that we have in our Launchpad, that we as a company, we try to be that reference. And without our reference, because almost 90% of the people that have been hired, we have gotten the calls from the hiring manager about the performance and how they did, both soft skills, hard skills, and all. So have somebody who can stand up for you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. We have one last question from Lalita. And she says, you have mentioned LinkedIn. So do you recommend writing a LinkedIn summary, which does mention about the employment gap? And would that be the right place to make the profile more targeted and clear? So would one of you like to answer that, please? We
I'm
have
happy to
like
take
2
that.
minutes.
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Nikita.
So what I would say is actually, you do need to have a summary, but I don't think I would say you do not need to mention the gap. What I would actually position it as the biggest, as a hiring manager, when I'm hiring right now, the biggest ambiguity I have when I'm looking at profiles where there has been a gap is not that there has been a gap, but what you're looking to do next, right? Because often it'll be quite different from what you have done 10 years ago, perhaps, right? And so what I'd say is being able to actually articulate in your summary what you're looking to do. So, professional with over 8 years of experience in technology, looking to now enter a career in digital marketing, or professional with X number of years in this thing looking to start a job of interacting with customers. Something that makes it clear for the hiring manager that this is a pivot that you're doing, so that it's easy for them to place you in their organization.
Yeah, very well said. We also go back and teach people in our program is like, whatever your years of gap is, put that in your LinkedIn and say, stay-at-home mom, stay-at-home dad, right? And list some of the soft skills that you have learned during that, which is so volunteering and all that. So you really don't have, and Lalita, the more you ask these questions, it feels like you're more focused on how to address the gap rather than what you bring to the table. So forget that you have a gap. Don't even need to, summary is not at all a place to put your gap at all. Okay, so you say your work from 2002 to, or break on 2002 to 2020, 2021. And these are the skills you have learned. Highlight the skills. Always focus on your strength. Always focus on your strength. And that's what is going to help you.
And LinkedIn has now come up with this tab where you can actually put work at home,
yeah,
or stay at home mom. There can be two different opinions on whether to use it or not, but LinkedIn is a place where you highlight all your strengths along the way that you have accumulated, whether you were working in a professional setting or volunteering setting. And it allows you to, unlike resume, allows you to bring that narrative thread out. Because it could be a job as a recruiter, or it could be a job as a blog writer. If communication is your strength, then maybe that can get highlighted and can be taken further. So use LinkedIn to that extent. And summary is something that, as Nikita said and as Veena said, is something that you can offer to the other person. This is what I can do.
Yeah, thank you. Just want to request our viewers to take the poll and give us your feedback. It really helps us in, getting different kinds of seminars to you. So please take a minute and do that. Thank you. That was a wonderful discussion. A huge thank you to Nikita, Swati, and Veena for having a thoughtful and insightful discussion on successfully navigating the hurdles in getting back to a career after a break. And a huge thank you to all of you who have taken the time on a Saturday afternoon to join us. And please stay tuned for our next session, which will be on Saturday, July 10th at the same time. And this time is going to be an interactive workshop on how to present your best version. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It was really nice to be here.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone.
And don't forget the poll, please, viewers. Thank you.